Appreciate you joining me today. It is September 18th. Our reading is in Nehemiah today, not in Ezra. I've done it again. In Nehemiah, we're looking in chapters 3 through 6 as you have the rebuilding of the wall. You have the rebuilding of the wall, you have the different things that Nehemiah and the people would face. There's trouble from outside, but in chapter 5 there's trouble from inside. Verse 1, there arose a great cry of the people and of their wives against their brethren the Jews. For there were that said, we are sons, and that's the issue. Let me kick over to the New King James. For there were those who said, we are sons and our daughters are many, therefore let us get grain that we may eat and live. There are also some who said, we've mortgaged our lands and our vineyards, houses that we might buy grain. There were those that said, we borrowed money for the king's tax on our lands and vineyards, yet now our flesh is as the flesh of our brethren, our children as their children. Right, all these things were happening. Indeed, we are forcing our sons and daughters to be slaves, and some of our daughters have been brought into slavery. It is not in our power to redeem them, for other men have our lands and vineyards. And I became very angry. Their outcry, when I heard their outcry in these words, after serious thought, I rebuked the nobles and rulers and said to them, each of you is exacting usury from his brother. So I called a great assembly against them. So there you see the problem. They've come back from captivity. Here they are. They're rebuilding, and this outcry comes up because they're starving to death, and they are enslaving themselves to others, and their brethren are lending, and it's not good. They're making usury of them. They're taking advantage of them. They're making a profit off of them to their own harm, to their harm. And so this outcry comes up. Nehemiah has to deal with it. There's trouble from outside. There's trouble from inside. See what he does. Verse 7. After serious thought, I rebuked the nobles and rulers, calls an assembly against them. Okay, verse 8. I said to them, according to our ability, we have redeemed our Jewish brethren who were sold to the nations. Now indeed will you even sell your brethren, or should they be sold to us? He's saying, we've been redeemed. Okay, that's the language. According to our ability, we have redeemed our Jewish brethren who were sold to the nations. We've come back. And now indeed will you sell your brethren. And it's the figure of, did you pay the price? We paid the price. We're out of captivity just to be sold again? We were slaves. Did we come back just to be each other's slaves? That's not right. And so he calls for them to stop. He calls for them to stop. What you are doing is not good, verse 9. Should you not walk in the fear of God because of the reproach of the nations, our enemies? Then verse 10, he says, I also with my brethren and my servants am lending them money and grain. Please let us stop. Let us stop this usury. He says, I'm doing the same thing. I've got to stop. And so you respect the honesty of Nehemiah. He doesn't just say, and he could have said, well, who am I? I'm doing the same thing. So who am I to call this assembly against them? No, he recognizes it's wrong. He recognizes it's wrong that they do it, and he recognizes that it's wrong if he does it. So he says, this has to stop. I have to stop. Now, what are we going to have to do? Verse 11. It's not just enough to stop, verse 11, because you have those they're basically becoming slaves again. So he says, verse 11, restore now to them even this day their lands, their vineyards, their olive groves, their houses, also 100th of the money and the grain and new wine you have charged them. So you have all these things, and they had to stop. They had to restore. Nehemiah is going to go on, and at the tail end of the chapter, he's going to go easy on them, and he's not going to take what he could have taken, namely the governor's portion. So that's Nehemiah. Just a brief study today. And so you have this idea. They had to stop taking advantage of their brethren. They had to make restitution. Whatever we can do to ease each other's burdens, that's what we should do. Appreciate you. Hope you have a good day. Join us tomorrow for another brief look into God's Word.